I won't go through this. This just simply gives you a sense of the diversity of some of the folks that were involved in our strategic planning process. Okay. Gordon, I have a challenge now. So,
Do you want to take up 5 minutes of the question time? Yes? Anybody object? Go.
You guys, thank you, because I'll tell you what, when I went through this morning, I did it in 20 minutes. I was in my pajamas, so I don't know, but it does make a real difference. Okay, I appreciate your indulgence. So that was who was involved in developing the partnership, and so now we get to the point of, so what is this partnership and what are its main functions? What the partners agreed is that there were 3 key functions that the partnership could provide that we thought would add value, that would not just be redundant. The first of those is the whole concept of stakeholder engagement. And I'm going to wax a little bit obtuse here for a second. One of the things that we're working on is the concept of building social capital among the stakeholders in Massachusetts, so that there is the relationships among these very diverse and sometimes competing stakeholders to support the whole concept of doing things a new way. If you're going to take a leap of faith and do things a new way in terms of ocean management, you really need people to embrace that and to be able to articulate their concerns and to really be able to participate. So this concept of building social capital among stakeholders in order to support this paradigm shift in ocean management, that was one of the key concepts that stakeholders agreed that we could hopefully work on. There are a number of folks. I'm mostly reminded of our representative from the Mass Marine Trades Association. That is the industry association representing marina operators and all the shoreside support, so the recreational boating industry. And throughout the planning process, she would constantly remark on the simple value. I know this sounds kind of obvious, but the simple value of actually bringing people together so that they can get to know one another, build relationships, understand each other's perspectives, even if you still differ. And it may seem trite, but that kind of stuff is really important, or at least it's been very important for us in Massachusetts. And so the concept was born that the partnership itself might be a vehicle for stakeholder engagement and to fuel stakeholder collaboration. And then secondly, in the stakeholder category, obviously whenever the state chose to formally begin its planning process, that the partnership would support that and help with those formal engagement processes. The second major function that we agreed that we could fill was in the science integration. I'm not going to go into that today because that's not the purpose of this forum, but I do just want to make a bookmark that the partnership is every bit as invested in improving the science and how the science informs decision making. We have 4 major science program areas. One is planning framework for integrated ocean management, data networks, modeling and decision support, and indicators. So enough said. That's just about enough to either make you glaze over or make you interested in learning more about it. And finally, the function was to essentially work to enlarge the pie of funding that would be available to support integrated ocean management. Very briefly, the form that the partnership chose to take in order to support those functions was that it's a partnership. It's a collaboration of diverse stakeholders. It's not an association. We are governed by an independent governing board, which is itself a microcosm of the diverse interests. We have 12 members on our governing board from industry, government, conservation, and the science community. And finally, we are professionally staffed. And the only reason I say that is I just want to point out that the staff of the partnership really, the only thing that we are accountable to is integrated ocean management. We're not accountable to any particular interest, so we have no axe to grind. We're sort of the Switzerland, if you will. Okay. Now, how did we... You need to go back one. For some reason, it's not showing up. Hang on. Oh, yes, it is. That's exactly where we need to be. My apologies. Okay. That was all before the act passed. What happened when lightning struck the primordial soup and we actually had a deadline? All things changed. So the act was filed in 2004. It took 4 years to get it passed, and very briefly, what it does is, first and foremost, it set a hard deadline, not relative to anything else. It said by New Year's Eve this year, the state will have produced an integrated ocean management plan. I won't go through the rest of this. It talks about consistency requirements. It takes the 15 principles that were developed earlier from the Mass Ocean Management Task Force and adopts those. So again, there's this continuity of the work that had gone on before. There is, of course, in any piece of legislation, evidence, there's strengths to it, and there's also evidence of the whole political sausage-making process. And a couple of those include that the two main advisory bodies that were established by the legislation, an Ocean Advisory Commission and a Science Advisory Council, those slots were pretty much designated in the Act and then appointed by the government. The stakeholders were not actually involved except informally in helping to determine what that representation would be. So some perceive that as a flaw, but we've worked with it pretty well. When Mel was speaking a minute ago, I was thinking of an org chart. This reminds me of the org chart that the state has developed. The state developed this org chart essentially to look at how they were going to operationalize the requirements of the Act. And the thing that I will point out here in the interest of time is just that the relationship between the partnership and the state is a very interesting one, and it's been very important that we continue to define that and clarify that for people as we go along. And so the obvious thing is that the state is the one with the mandate and the authority and the responsibility to develop and implement the Act, and the partnership in this version of its role, as opposed to its service to its partners independently. Some of you may remember there was a commercial years ago from a chemical company named BASF, and they used to say, "We don't make the widgets, we make the widgets better." And so I think that sort of sums it up. The partnership is not writing the plan or making the plan, but we are providing services and support in stakeholder engagement and science support that make the plan better. That's enough about that. So in terms of stakeholder engagement, we moving? There we go. In terms of stakeholder engagement, I realize now I've completely overstayed my welcome at the podium. So let me just say that what this graphic represents is several tracts, some of which, several tracts related to stakeholder engagement. Some of these the state convenes on their own, and with MOP support. And some of these, the partnership convenes, thereby allowing an independent forum that the state doesn't have the burden of convening or isn't perceived as convening or being tied to, where the partnership can bring stakeholders together to sort of do collaborative problem solving without the constraints or the confines of it being a formal government process. So that alternative venue that the partnership has created is a very important aspect of what we do.